so much coming up.
We really have. We've got at 10:15, we've got Gina Dixon, who's an author from England, who's going to be talking to us about her dark short stories in a collection called Underleaf. And then after that we have Mary Rose McGrath, who's going to be giving us all the spring and summer fashion hints.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be talking in the second half to Sarah England, another author, and she's going to be talking about her the sequel to her Father of Lies book. You're to authors of a variety of genres, if I can speak properly this morning. We are going to be talking to Sarah England. Sarah, welcome back to Belfast 89.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so you are very well known for... you're quite a prolific writer, Sarah, actually. What, over 300 short stories in national newspapers and your own publications as well?
Well, yes, I was a magazine writer for about 10 years before I started writing novels. Although I did write a couple along the way, and they were pretty dreadful. I don't know how I had the cheek to send them out, really. But I had a go. And then I started writing short stories for magazines and had some success that way. And eventually started writing serials. So that's what happened. I then wrote a comedy novel, a chick lit kind of, well, maybe an anti-chick lit sort of novel, which went into with Crooked Cat Publishing, and then I met someone who really kind of appalled me with her story, and I started to write supernatural horror, and since then I've written two.
Fantastic. Sarah, you will not know, but you're picking up on something of a theme here. Having spoken to Katrina and Gina Dickerson earlier, both ladies who are very well known for writing crime and very dark, murderous novels, started off by trying to write a romantic comedy and ended off killing their love interests. So it seems that you were following similarly in that vein, writing a dark romantic comedy and then going off into, the supernatural, darker realms.
Yes, maybe our subconscious just couldn't quite let us do the sort of lovey-dovey stuff. My hero, should I say, in the romantic comedy I tried, I ended up having him as quite a sort of despised character. Just couldn't help it. So maybe I was veering to the dark side already.
I think it's because the lighter romantic comedies, they may be great to read, but they're really quite boring to write.
Oh, very. I actually don't read them either, because I just find them too formulaic, and I know exactly what's going to happen, and it's a bit cheesy, and it didn't challenge me as a writer, and I kind of almost gave up, really, until I started doing this, and this I actually find exciting. It actually gives me a buzz, and I know from what readers are saying that they find it exciting too. So I think this is my thing anyway.
So Tanners Dell is your latest offering, and it is kind of the sequel to Father of Lies. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that series, Sarah.
Okay, well, Father of Lies was released last autumn, and it was after meeting a lady who had what used to be called multiple personality disorder, is now called dissociative identity disorder. It's a fragmented personality. And when she told me her story, what she'd had to live through as a child, I was so shocked and so horrified that I had some more. I did a lot of research. I've got a psychiatric background, as a professional. I was a nurse, and then I worked in medical sales, specialising in psychiatry. So I'd got that interest, and I also had a kind of morbid interest in the occult. So I started to weave the story, started to do some research, and it started from there. But at the end of Father of Lies, there were still a lot of questions as to why this had happened, and what had really gone on in that ex-mining village. It was a very spooky area. So with Tanners Dell, I really got down to what happened there, and sort of fabricated a story spanning 50 years, really, going back into witchcraft, Satanism, the occult, and a kind of seal of silence in the village about it because people were so scared.
So is Tanners Dell, I suppose, your exploration of how those circumstances could be created into which this young woman could find herself in such a horrific position? Yes,
the first one was set in the forensic unit, really, where the medical staff try to help her, and she's hypnotised, and what is released from that is a pretty horrific force that leaves the medical staff perplexed. Most of them are starting to question their religion and starting to question, exactly what's happened, because they can't put a logical explanation on it. So most of it's set there, but at the end of that, it really was, well, what on earth happened to her? Because she can only remember in various alter personalities. She can only remember fragments of what happened. So Tanners Dell actually tells the stories through a few other people's eyes, the people who were mentioned in Father of Lies, and it goes through exactly what happened in Woods End.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's fascinating that, I suppose, looking at your background where there is that nursing and that forensic aspect, but then I suppose in many ways it's a world apart from what you're doing now, but it obviously inspires your writing as well, the people that you've met, the stories you've encountered.
It does, because particularly when you're describing being in a psychiatric unit, I mean, some of the main characters, well, I would say the main character outside the girl who's disturbed by all this is a nurse called Becky. And I can kind of get into Becky's head, but she's the ward sister. And I can get into her head and also picture how, the shifts and the patients that they have to manage, and also the atmosphere in a psychiatric unit. And Ruby, the girl who's disturbed, she paints the picture as well, sitting in the day room, what it's like with some of the other characters, some of the other patients. And I've been there, sitting in that day room with some pretty bizarre patients. So it helps to have that background, and it helps to have a bit of medical knowledge. And the rest of it, a lot of the rest of it is also set in an infirmary. So again, it's about feeling it and knowing what it feels like to be in a hospital at night at 2 and 3 in the morning.
And I suppose to me what comes across as well is, that deep sense of compassion and curiosity at the same time for the people that you're engaging with, compassion in the current sense of wanting to support them to get well, but also the curiosity which must fuel your writing as well. Well, what happened? What's their story? How did it become this way?
Exactly. I can remember once going to visit a psychiatrist, and he was looking after some pretty remote villages in that area, actually, in those ex-mining village areas. And it was a girl who had really entrenched schizophrenia, and she'd started to get better in hospital. And as soon as she went back into the environment, into the village that she came from, that she regressed almost immediately. And it was, those sort of things just kind of plant seeds in your mind. Well, what was her home environment like? A lot of these people don't understand mental illness, particularly schizophrenia. She's just mad, But she'd gone back into that situation, back into that family, back into that remote village where there was no understanding. Yeah. And that's kind of, what do some people live through? What these children, what could happen? And that's where it seeds from.
And I suppose it's mental health issues and symptoms can be that just pure expression of distress in a person.
I think it can exacerbate it. I think people can perhaps start to get well, but put them back into the same situation, and those same psychological issues and torments and behaviours, will arise again, if you like. So I married those up. I kind of married up the horrors of what was happening in terms of, this particularly evil character who'd set up a satanic sect. I married that up with meddling in the occult, but also mental health and, issues of religion and issues of trying to understand and trying to help somebody.
Sarah, it's very often said that writers should write what they know about. Do you think it would have been possible to write such an in-depth novel if you hadn't had the background that you have professionally?
I think somebody else would have done it differently, perhaps, because there's a lot of me in it. I hope not, because there's some really really demonic characters in there. But I think it helps to have a deep, ingrained understanding of what you do, and I think it's probably the same with Katrina's novels. You know, it helps to have that background of knowledge and understanding, because you can really get into people's minds and you can really convey how it feels and what could happen.
I think, certainly from my perspective, once you've actually seen somebody who suffered these things, or you sat opposite them, or you sat opposite their family, you can never actually forget it. So even though you're not thinking about it every day, when you start to write about it, it does come back.
It does. The lady who sort of triggered the whole thing for me and started me down this track, she's not Ruby, but she certainly inspired Ruby. And she switched personality in front of me, and I was with her sister, her twin sister. She really did have a twin sister, this one. And she switched in front of me, and I will never forget it, and I've never been so shocked and so upset in all my life, because she switched into a baby, a toddler, and I realised what she'd been put through. And one of the main reasons I wanted to make a good job of these books was to convey, yes, it's horror, yes, it's entertainment, but some children actually suffer this. A lot of them do, probably thousands, and people turn a blind eye, and they end up in mental health units. But I've never seen anything so upsetting in all my life. She turned into a toddler with tears dripping down her cheeks and not understanding what was going on. And it took us ages to bring her back. And when she came back, she had a terrible, terrible headache, and she was very sick, and she couldn't breathe. It was horrible, and it makes you wonder what on earth happened to her. And I only know through her twin sister some of the things that did happen to her. So she's not Ruby, but she certainly inspired her. Mm-hmm.
So where can people find your book, Sarah?
Oh, right. Father of Lies is on Amazon as a download and a paperback. It's also available to order in any bookstore worldwide, including Waterstones. Tanners Dell is currently on Amazon. It only came out on Saturday, so it's just on download and paperback on Amazon, but hopefully it'll be in the bookstores within another month or so.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, best of luck. It sounds like a fabulous series. And I hope people are interested.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much for having me on.
No worries, Sarah. All the best now.